Hello. I had the pleasure of sitting down to talk with BAFTA and Emmy-nominated director Jeremy Webb. He's worked on episodes of shows such as The Umbrella Academy, Altered Carbon, Legion, Fear the Walking Dead, and The Punisher, to name but a few. He was nominated for an Emmy thanks to his work on Downton Abbey, and specifically the episode that dealt with the death of Lady Sybil. He was nominated for a BAFTA for his work on the legal drama Silk and the BBC series Merlin, where he was the main director for 3 seasons. However, in our chats with Jeremy, we spoke mostly about his time working on the hit Netflix series Shadow and Bone, as well as his career, his favourite directors, and what he's working on next. I hope you enjoy our chat with Jeremy, and without any further ado, here it is. Well, first off, hi, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm now what am I now? Day 10? Yeah, no, I think I've got 2 more days of quarantine. They're going to let me out on Thursday.
Oh, good, good. And that's in Canada, right? You're quarantined. You're held up in Canada.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, before we start about Shadow and Bone, which is really what we're going to be talking about quite a lot, because that's the latest thing you've done. I'd really love to talk about basically your influences and what really made you want to become a director. Those were the things I was really interested to know about. You've seen Super 8, right? Yes.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of me when I was 13. My dad was quite a big movie fan and was always very excited about showing me, sort of classic films. Often, a lot of them were often quite a lot about, World War II and epics such as like Lawrence of Arabia, and Sunday afternoons were big. Oh, this film is on, and also around Christmas he would be going through the Radio Times, highlighting classic films that we should definitely see, and he got very excited about them. I guess that was infectious. And also, we went to the theatre quite a lot. And then my grandparents were very keen Super 8 movie makers, and they would shoot all their travels on Super 8 and cut them together with music and voiceover, and sometimes little animated pens and cars showing the route that they went. With my grandma doing the sort of wonderful voiceover, sounding a lot like the Queen a lot of the time. And I think those 2 influences came together, and I started playing around with a Super 8 camera, and then I was my influence. And then obviously the late 70s Star Wars came out, and that had a massive effect on me in terms of how that was made. And I couldn't find I just didn't think there was anything more exciting than figuring out how they made Star Wars, and I guess it grew from there. So my interest very much started in genre and fantasy and science fiction and those sort of fantasy worlds, and grew from there, I guess. Yeah.
And was it always director? Was that always the thing you wanted to be, or was there anything else in the film world you had an interest in?
Yeah, I guess I was very keen to be in front of the camera, and that was the initial. I think that was the initial sort of thrust of it. Really, I enjoyed the train set of all the other things, like the makeup and the figuring out lenses and stuff. But also, I was very sort of busy in youth theatre as well, and did a lot of plays and a lot of musicals and stuff like that. And actually, when I left school, I mean, what I did theatre studies, film studies, English and art, and then I did those auditions at kind of RADA and Webber Douglas and Central and those famous colleges after I finished my A-levels, and I really wasn't very good, so surprise, surprise, I didn't get in. But that was the plan, was to go to drama school. So then I just didn't end up. I ended up just eventually going on the other side of the camera, and then I think I was a PA in a production company for a while, and then managed to get some money together to make a short, and apply to the National Film School.
So
at Beaconsfield, so I was able to get a place on that. Somehow managed to get a place on the director's course there.
And so from there you went in. When looking at the start of your career, it was a lot of working on BBC productions. So, for instance, you worked on Doctor Who, and you worked on Merlin as well. What was it? What do you think you learned from working on those shows in particular that then kind of helped you work to where you are now, working for Netflix or with Netflix?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you're just constantly honing your craft, really, aren't you? I mean, I think you just understand the importance of planning, having a vision for a script, and then having, and having the right resources and understanding how to plan it, and how to sort of make it as good as you can within the time that they're going to give you. And the trouble is, when you're working on those shows, you kind of go, God, yeah, if only I could work on one of those big American shows where they have all the time and the money in the world, and then you finally get to those big American shows, and they do have more time and more money, but the scale of what you're being asked to achieve is sort of feature film standard. So you're back to the same problem.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ed, go ahead.
No, I just noticed you're starting to share a lot more stuff of the behind-the-scenes stuff on Instagram now, which is really good. I've been waiting for you to do that for quite some time, and you can really just see the scale.
Finding, I thought, I could do that. Maybe I'll put a couple of things up. And obviously, all those shows have gone out now, and always the Netflix thing is shoot them when they're happening, but save it until after the premiere, after the shows have gone out. So there were, it's just, I'm very, very busy, obviously, on the set, so I don't spend a lot of time gathering that stuff, really, unlike the actors who have more time than me. But there was just a couple of little nuggets there I thought that people should see.
The explosion is brilliant. That's a brilliant one, and it's great to see behind the scenes stuff on those shows in particular, because it looks like it was Shadow and Bone looks like it was a really good fun time on set, as does the Umbrella Academy, which is the other show you directed recently, so season 2. What was it about Shadow and Bone that really attracted you to it, to the story and the show in particular? What was it?
Well, a number of things. I was in Budapest, and I'd worked with a writer producer, Christian Bolan, on The Punisher, who's married to Eric Heisserer, and I met them because he was starting to put the show together in Budapest when I was shooting Treadstone. So we met for dinner, and because I had a relationship, a working relationship, working alongside his wife for Marvel and Netflix. Yeah, it was clear that perhaps I might end up being involved in it in some capacity. But we were sort of talking gently about the show, and I was beginning to understand it. And then towards the end of the year, suddenly the script sort of arrived when I was dealing with the snow of the Umbrella Academy. Because I don't know whether you realize, in that finale that we did for season 2, the snow that's in that finale was a complete accident. That wasn't the plan. We had to find
it worked very well.
Yeah, it was great. We got caught by the Toronto winter. It came earlier than we thought. Yeah. We had this big dump of snow, and we had to figure out a way to write it into the script. So we just made it part of Harlan's powers, and I think it was a lovely accident. Anyway, so I was dealing with that, and then these scripts came in with a meeting to chat with Eric again and the producers at 21 Laps, and I read it, and what appealed to me was this is a story about an underdog female sort of soldier map maker in a sort of and I think that was the first thing that I thought was really exciting about it. I mean, I'd read a little bit about what Leigh Bardugo's books were, but in its script form, I really sort of got a sense of her, and as her powers awaken, I really kind of held on to that, probably more than the stuff that's happening with the Crows, to be honest. I really latched onto her story and felt that that she seemed really interesting, and she was really well written, and I liked her relationship with Mal. I also loved the world, and it's a world that Eric often calls a sort of Tsar punk. Yeah, which I really liked as well, because so many fantasy worlds are in a sort of British medieval kind of thing that we've seen so many times, but this one I felt I hadn't seen.
Yeah, and it's true, because whilst watching it, I was thinking this is like a real mixture of kind of science fiction and period drama almost. A lot of it is the way it looks is kind of that, and it's kind of, there's a lot of punk is right, kind of cyberpunk stuff going on with the machinery and things like that, and it's just to look at. It's an incredible show to look at.
Yeah,
And
they did a great job. I mean, Lee, who was the pilot director, I think I was reading an interview with him or watching an interview with him, and I think he was really inspired by the world of or how they kind of approach Gladiator, where the detail across all the different departments was really well thought through and cohesive, even though it sort of borrowed from other influences, and you can really see that in the show. I think they did an extraordinary job of world building in that first episode.
And you really seem to have, like, I don't know, maybe it's something about your career, maybe it's just something you're drawn to. You, like, if you look at your resumes, I mean, with Shadow and Bone, specifically Shadow and Bone and the Umbrella Academy, you often end up directing the finales. Does that add any pressure? Because that's like, I mean, Shadow and Bone, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but it does end on a bit of a cliffhanger. And does that add any pressure for you personally, having to work on what you know is going to be the end of said season?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and also, to be honest, often when you get to the finale, on some shows, they've spent all the money and all that bit that was being reserved for the finale isn't as much as you would have hoped, and everyone's tired, and sometimes the cast perhaps haven't had the best experience. That wasn't the case on Shadow and Bone, I have to say. I came into an extremely organized production with a cast that was still really pleased to be there and excited to sort of finish off the story. So that helps, that you're not coming into one of those situations. And
it's a brilliant cast, I have to say. Like, was there any involvement on your end for the casting?
I mean, when you come in to do episodes, you're very much only responsible for new characters that arrive in your episodes. So that was all figured out in an extremely kind of in-depth process when they figured out the pilot, and really diverse, really interesting, and super talented. They were and a very kind of pleasant and fun and an excitable bunch. It was really good to. It was. I mean, I'd heard that they were great, and then I obviously saw the pilot when it was assembled, and it was fantastic just to see them all really delivering.
And so, how early on were you involved in this project? You were talking before about things kind of happening relatively early. Was it at the beginning, or did you kind of come into it more towards like?
Yeah, well, I knew it was going on, and that I was going to be in the mix for it. Yeah, it was, as I said, it was that winter when I was, that's just before Christmas of, where are we? 2019, when I was up in Toronto doing the Umbrella Academy. That's the first time I read the scripts, but I knew they were down there. I knew it was happening. I guess, I was just hoping that I would get the call for it, because I knew I was in the mix, and I was, on the list to be invited. I was just waiting to find out whether that would deliver, which is often the case in this business sometimes.
Yeah, because you told me about it. I think last time we spoke, you told me that look out for Shadow and Bone, and I hadn't heard about the books before. So then I went and I read the first. It's a trilogy, isn't it? So I read the first in the trilogy by, I hope I pronounced the name right, Lee Bardugo.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So how closely did you work with Lee?
Again, obviously she's an executive producer on the show and wrote the novels. So really the pilot director had the most to do with her. I did get a chance to meet her, and she was on set for the finale, which was great. So we did chat, but I think all the hard work had been done by then in terms of really figuring out, and how to put the two books together. The Crows books and Malin and Lena's story. So a lot of that had been done. I think she was in a great place, because by then, she was really thrilled by what all the different departments had brought to her world and made it real. So when I got to meet her, we were doing the sort of Sandskiff stuff, on the stages in Budapest, where we were doing all the fun stuff. We were fighting Volkras and flying around the boat and figuring out ultimately how much that all was going to cost, because on that sand skiff sequence in the last episode, just about every single shot is a visual effects shot. So we were, we'd done a lot of work trying to figure out a big sort of a previs of that sequence, because we knew that it had to be budgeted carefully, because it wasn't just every shot cost extra money because of the visual effects involved, because we were in the fog. So that's when I met Lee, and she was lovely and very excited, and I bet she's even more excited now because the show has been so internationally successful.
Well, that's the thing. It's been a massive success, like worldwide. So I live in France now. I'm out here in France, and you see it advertised in a lot of places. And actually, this is the interesting thing about your shows, is that I think I've seen your shows advertised in France and Italy more than any other Netflix show. So the Umbrella Academy, when that came out, that was everywhere here, and it's been a big hit on the platform on Netflix, and it's like in the #1 spots everywhere. But so I mean, I know you probably can't say anything, but season 2?
Yeah, you're right. I can't say anything.
I thought so. But things are looking good, I think.
Let's celebrate that it's been so successful in just about every territory, on a platform that really knows how to tell these kind of stories, and in a unique way across so many different countries. And it's great as a filmmaker to know that so many millions of people are going to enjoy the work that you've made. It's really thrilling. Occasionally, I will watch one of those reactions things on YouTube. When you get an interesting couple, whether from Eastern Europe or from Texas, who will sit and watch the episode that you've done, and because obviously I don't get to sit in front of an audience, especially in COVID. It's quite rewarding to watch their reaction and see their enthusiasm as the episode plays out. So
I'm annoyed. I should have done a reaction video to the last episode. Next time I should have done that. But one of the things is that I think I asked you this last time about the Umbrella Academy, but I tend to like to know. There's always a favorite moment, I think. Anyway, I mean, I've been on a couple of sets. I've done some very bad and amateur acting, and there's always a scene that kind of stays with you. Was there a scene for you over these 2 episodes that you really enjoyed filming and that you really remember that and you're proud of, in particular?
In Shadow and Bone.
Yes.
I think the stuff in the permafrost where Alina finds the stag was an interesting thing to figure out, because some of it is some of it's obviously a lot of CG, bringing the stag to life. But we built this extraordinary set on the soundstage, where it could really snow. Yeah. In terms of special effects. So we were like, it was freezing in there anyway, because we were I think we were January in Budapest. But to be able to command it to snow and to have actors walking around in there and a sort of pretend stag that wasn't there, it was fun and challenging to figure out.
I can imagine.
So that was a highlight, but also just the simple two-hander between Ben and Jesse when we were doing the sort of famous kind of Alina and Darkling kind of intimate sort of scenes together. When you hear them say some of the classic lines from the books. It's quite a thrill, because how what those moments will mean to the fans. Yeah.
And I think fans really appreciated that. Yeah. But this is the second time. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's often a combination between the big scale stuff you get to do and some of the toys and the worlds and the effects that you're able to build, and then it can be just simply 2 actors just doing kind of a killer scene brilliantly. Yeah.
And that scene, I know which one you're talking about. That is an incredible scene between Ben and I mean, this is the second time you worked with Ben Barnes, right? Isn't it? Didn't you work with him on The Punisher?
Yeah. I did 2 seasons of The Punisher. In fact, yeah, I did his very last scene.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed that that character can return in some form or another. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with the Punisher? But it's just really nice to see Ben Barnes back in stuff, because there's a while before he did the Punisher that it was I don't know why it happens. I think with people's careers, he was in he was Prince Caspian was his big role, and it's just really nice to see him return. And I can imagine. I mean, asked about the cast before. It sounds like they're a lot of fun to work with, which is good to hear.
Yeah, you remember Ben had a pretty juicy role in Westworld, though, if you remember.
Yes, he did. Yes, you're right. And what? Okay, I know you probably are you involved in? You probably can't say this, but in Umbrella Academy season 3. Because that has been announced. Yes. Oh, that's why you're here. Okay, so you are involved in season 3.
Yeah, I have been involved in it since last year, and I'm here to do some more on it.
Oh, brilliant! That's wonderful news. Because I mean, I can imagine this is a question I wanted to ask you. But what's it like having to film a show like Shadow and Bone and like Umbrella Academy when you're in the midst of a global pandemic? That must be incredibly tough.
Yeah, it has been tough, and it continues to be tough, particularly in Ontario. I mean, all over the world, everyone's still, doing all the protocols. So, there's the quarantine, which is tough, just being isolated for 2 weeks when you kind of fly into a country. And there's a limit to how much prep you can do remotely, but you can do some. And then obviously there's regular testing. There's, in-person prep is weird, because even though everyone's in the building, you still don't all meet together for big meetings. Stunt rehearsals, you do everyone's tested, but you do it all with masks. All the rehearsals are done with masks, and until you really shoot. I mean, cast are allowed to come on without masks to block on the set. And I don't know if you've been reading, but there's a system called the zone system, and we try and keep the flow of different levels of people in the department away from each other, so that the actors are very much protected. Okay. PPE, face masks, and social distancing, and when you go on the scouts on buses, it's not, obviously you can only have a limited amount of people on buses, and it's a whole bunch of things. But I can't. I mean, our crew have been so incredibly kind of patient and understanding, and what's great is that what's ending up on the screen is some of the best work we've ever done.
Well, that's what I was going to say. In the midst of this kind of pandemic and all this these difficulties, these barriers that are thrown in front of you, Netflix in particular is still producing incredible content, probably some of the best content they've produced in a long time. So we've got like Shadow and Bone that's just come out, but it's been a massive year for Netflix in particular. Like, I mean, I don't know if you've watched one of my, apart from Shadow and Bone, of course, but another show that came out on Netflix this year was a French show called Lupin, which is doing really well. Bridgerton did really well. So, and the quality is really, really high. So honestly, I think
in fairness, Ed, so much of that was not made in COVID.
Yes,
because
that is true.
That's a lot of product from 2019. But it still stands true. I don't think people have allowed the quality to drop in any way.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think some shows have had to scale back, the amount of people that they have in scenes, and so there are sometimes limits about how many extras you can have and things like that. But it'll be interesting, won't it, when in the future to look back on the shows that were made during that year to see if there's any obvious or very apparent kind of change in the quality of the shows or the sort of scale of the production.
Yeah. I mean, the first show, I suppose, Shadow and Bone was it not made during the pandemic? Was it just before?
No, it was made just before it went in. As we flew out at the end of February, there wasn't any COVID in Budapest yet, and we were warned as we got on the plane that perhaps we should wipe stuff down, but we weren't shooting within COVID conditions. We were done.
So the first kind of for you it was Umbrella Academy season 3, was it? And then I suppose I'm pretty sure season 3 is going to be pretty amazing. I suppose the other big Netflix production is The Witcher season 2. So that's one that was made in COVID, and there were a lot of delays on that production in particular because of COVID. So yeah. I mean, I honestly tend to think that in the face of adversity, you often tend to see some of the best work come out. So hopefully that will be the case with all of these things. But I was just saying that throughout a year, that's, you know, you're right. It was a lot of the stuff was made before COVID. So we're gonna wait and see, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be fantastic. One thing I wanted to do was bring in my producer James, because we've got some questions for you that we could do, kind of quick fire questions. I was thinking might be quite fun to do.
Welcome back, James.
Jeremy. Thank you. Sorry, I've been bugging Edward behind the scenes, so because I've been digging your answers a lot. My mom used to wake me up at 1 a.m. to watch like Peter Sellers, The Party, and Monty Python, Holy Grail, and Lawrence of Arabia and stuff like that. So that really resonated with me. I just wanted to ask you a question. Do you have a couple favorite directors that really influence you? Like you mentioned Star Wars, so. Yeah,
I mean, I think that that sort of intelligent genre film to blockbuster that the movie brats kind of stumbled across and developed during the sort of, you know, late 70s and 80s have always been one of my sort of favorite, you know, periods in film history. You know, how they're, and I think actually that's what I really like. I like intelligent genre, you know, and you know, smart high concept stories is what I'm really drawn to.
Can you give me an example?
Well, in terms of who was in that? I mean, obviously, you know, Spielberg and Scorsese.
But what one stands out to you? Like, what if you had to pick one to name the Brat Pack? What one would stand out to you?
I wouldn't say one. I would say I was particularly a big fan of John Carpenter and Halloween when I was a teenager. So much so that I made a little Super 8 version of 20 minutes of it, starring my brother's girlfriend, and it involved the Michael Myers character tearing the head off my small terrier. And I made the prosthetic head. I was quite pleased about that. But I'll never forget the first time I saw that. And I think Close Encounters had a really profound effect on me as well, in terms of how sort of mysterious and how layered that was, and how grounded the human story was, and then how extraordinary the visuals were.
And what about directors that are current right now? Do you have any that you look up to?
Yeah, I think Alfonso Cuarón. Thinking about the last sort of half an hour or 40 minutes of Children of Men just being just like unbelievably intense virtuoso, like you know, just baffling kind of craft. Who would be a hero. I love how stylish somebody like Damien Chazelle is for something like Whiplash. Is a big favorite of mine. Those would stand out. I mean, I think, you know, what John Krasinski does in A Quiet Place is pretty extraordinary as well. I can't wait to see the sequel that comes out. Maybe apart from, you know, I think maybe he shows too much monster, and it's to perhaps you know, obviously CG, but I think still the mood that he's able to build in that, I think was great. Edgar Wright, I'm a big fan of as well, obviously, in terms of, I look forward to seeing the sort of serious straight drama that he does one day, but you can't help but be by his virtuoso kind of, you know, comedy style, and just how, you know, delightful and stylish and smart all that stuff is.
Yeah, his new trailer just dropped. Yeah, sorry, Edward.
Yeah, it was Last Night in Soho is gonna come out soon, so that's gonna be an interesting one to watch.
Yeah,
I think we have
a few.
I suppose. Well, I think this is a question that James probably wants to ask. But if there was a franchise, I'm going to ask it anyway. If there was a franchise you'd like to be involved with, Which one would it be? Star Wars, Alien, Star Trek, the MCU, or the DCEU?
It would have to be Star Wars.
Yeah, I thought so. Because I'm not sure if you know this, James, but Jeremy used to. I'm not sure if I could say this.
What's that?
That you used to live quite close to Jon Favreau.
Yeah, dude, yeah. In our rented house, we had this rented house in Santa Monica. He used to be my neighbor. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's awesome. doing a lot of cool Star Wars stuff. I suppose the Mandalorian might be something you'd like to get involved.
Yeah, I would just love to get just to scratch that itch to say that I've been able to kind of mess around in that world for a bit. I would love that.
Maybe
they should bring you over. Yeah, they should get you over.
The Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, I need to. Yeah, I'm having a good time in the Netflix world at the moment. But it's something I would love to do. I would love to get involved in that.
Can you kind of tell me what your creative process is when you come onto a show to direct a couple episodes, as opposed, like, obviously you're doing a lot of pre-production, Umbrella Academy 3 and stuff, but how do you get your mindset to come into this world that other people have set up?
Yeah,
right?
so it's a good question. Yeah, I have to do that a lot. You just have to immerse yourself into the world. There's no other way. I think you just have to watch as much stuff as they'll let you, because they, and they're really good about it when they come in. You just say, I need to see the pilot, and then see all the episodes. I don't care what state they're in, because they're obviously in different, process of different stages of being edited. So you just have to sort of see what they're doing and what's really working, and maybe even what's not. The showrunners or some of the producers or other directors are quite kind of candid about what's working and what isn't, and what's really kind of successful for the show. And I think you want to try and amplify that and jump on that, And I think you just have to put your sort of team hat on, really. You have to realize you're a team of directors who are going to give life to the, what's effectively a sort of 4 or 5 movie stretch of story.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite fun to be a kind of team of directors around the project, because everyone's got, a good showrunner will cast a director in terms of episodic, depending what's in the show. Because I've done quite a lot of big scale stuff, I tend to get the big ones, just because I've sort of proven track record of being able to handle them within the time and the resources. So yeah, I think it's just about immersing yourself, really understanding what you've got, getting to know the cast, trying to rehearse as much as you can, so that you sort of very quickly build up some trust and a good working relationship with them.
Oh yeah, that's got to be tricky to accelerate that process as soon as you come in.
And even if they're sort of 7 episodes or 6 episodes in, they all still want to rehearse on weekends. Because they know how limited time is on the day, and anything that can make them better or make enhance the scenes or the story is worth meeting on a weekend or something.
Right. Yeah. You never fix it in post, right? So.
Well, you always fix it in post.
I know.
That prep is where you make the show. The shoot is where you mess it up, and prep is where you fix what is where you fix what you mess up.
Yeah. Okay, I got one last question, then I'll leave you to be. Do you have a passion project that you're working on behind the scenes that you'd want to get out in the future? And if not, do you have like one that you like any property? Doesn't have to be a huge franchise that you would want to tackle. Yeah,
well, I was thinking about this. I thought, well, I'm not going to tell you, because
no, you can't tell me. But
I'm not going to tell you, because people will go, "Oh, that's a good idea." Let's jump on that. And before you realize, the book that you want, the rights have gone.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about what would be amusing to talk about, and I think, well, let's do a reboot of Children of the Stones. Which was a lesser-known ITV kids drama about a bunch of spooky stones. Do you remember that?
I used to watch that as a kid, so I that would be really good.
Yeah, see, now it's blown. Really, really now it's out there. It's blown.
Yeah, it's blown up now.
Run with it.
I wonder who has the rights to that. I bet it's still ITV, wouldn't it? No.
That used probably. That used to scare the shit out of me, and it had I think it had Blake in it from Blake 7.
Yes, it did. And this is something, because most of my audience is American, they have no. I started talking about Blake Seven once, and no one knew what I was talking about. They thought, and I was like, it's kind of like a spoof of like Star Trek, an English spoof. It's brilliant. Blake Seven is so good
with the worst props and the worst special effects.
Yeah. It was like it was kind of on the same time as Doctor Who. Like it was kind of it was a bit later than Doctor Who, wasn't it? Blake Seven. It started later, and it was just such a weird show. I remember watching it as a kid, and I used to watch Doctor Who alongside it, and I was like, "This is very strange."
Yeah. Do you remember the name of the ship?
No, I can't. Not at the top of my head.
I think it was called the Liberator.
The Liberator.
Yeah,
that's such a good show. That makes me nostalgic.
So maybe that, or surely Logan's Run needs a kick, right?
Yes, you mentioned that last time. Yeah,
I think that must be the. Yeah, I think that needs,
especially with the news that they're making a Highlander reboot. I think they've got to do a Logan's Run reboot as well. That'd be pretty cool. I think it's been in the works actually.
People
have tried it.
Do you remember that rather strange moment in the feature film where they get into this freezing cave? Is it just Jenny Agutter and Susanna York?
Yes.
And Jenny Agutter and Michael York.
Sorry, I can't remember the names.
Freudian wishful thinking sitting in there. But do you remember that? Like, I think she says something like, "Quick, take off our clothes. They'll freeze on us," or something like that.
Yes,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah. there's a scene a little bit like that in Shadow and Bone. Actually, there's like a take off the clothes moment. Yeah,
Good to tie it back to that.
Bring it back. I think is that James? Are you done with your questions?
Just one more. Is there a production team that you'd really want to work with in the future, or a specific actor or actress?
Oh God, there's loads. I think Elizabeth Olsen's pretty amazing, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
You know, she's very exciting and really coming into interesting stuff at the moment. Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, I think she's just great. I'd love to work with her. God, so many. And production team. We're talking about teams. I mean, it was so great to work with the Stranger Things producers on Shadow and Bone. They're a great gang. I'd like to do more with them. Dan Cohen and Dan Levine, Sean Levy's company.
Nice.
I mean, just because I like what they do. You know, I love Shadow and Bone, Stranger Things, and some of the other shows. So they're clearly doing great things. So
they're very good at the genre stuff, aren't they?
Smart, intelligent, really character-based and grounded, funny, clever, witty drama and genre, I think, is what they do really well. So
yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for putting up with me, Jeremy. I appreciate it. Stay safe out there.
Yeah. Take care. You too.
And hopefully you get to go to Kensington Market once this pandemic finishes in 20 years. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm back here again in about 5 weeks, actually. So I'm going to be doing the finale of Lock and Key.
Oh, nice.
For Meredith and Carlton Coos. So I've got to do one last quarantine. I can't believe it. Well, hopefully not. Maybe I'll get a vaccine passport this time. So let's keep our fingers crossed. So
fingers crossed.
That's next. So hopefully by then our numbers will be better.
Awesome.
Thanks, James.
Take care. Thank you.
I suppose one last question before we let you go. You kind of mentioned it there, but what's next for you?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be doing that. I've got to do about a week's worth of additional photography for Umbrella Academy, and then I'm going to take a little vacation with my family, and then I'll return to do the ending of season 3 of Lock and Key. Brilliant,
wonderful. Lock and Key first season is brilliant, by the way. I'm really excited for season 2.
Yeah, I know. Season 2. I mean, I hope I get to see it before I start shooting the finale of 3.
Yeah.
Talking about what you need to do to get your head around the show. So I'm quite sure when that arrives, but it must be soon.
It must be soon. Did you meet Joe Hill? Talking of Lock and Key.
I haven't met Joe, but I've worked on Nosferatu for AMC, and so I'm very familiar with what he cares about and his world, and obviously really love the first season of Lock and Key. I can't. I would imagine he'll probably be around for season 3. So maybe we'll
he often likes a little cameo, doesn't he, Joe Hill?
He does, yeah.
Cameo. Yeah. Actually, one thing I wanted to ask you before I let you go, which I swear I will do. You don't cameo in your stuff, do you?
No,
because you got no. I was wondering why not, because you mentioned it last time we spoke, and you were like, I started off in front of the camera. Has there ever been you thought, oh, this might be quite interesting for me to do, acting wise? Yeah.
Well, do you remember also I said I'm actually not very good, so maybe that's a good reason. Oh.
I'm sure that's not true.
I wasn't successful getting into drama school, so I think I'll leave it to the people who are best in front of the camera, and I'll stay where I am for the moment. But you've got me thinking there, Ed. Who knows? Maybe that'll change.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of a joke on this show that for some reason the viewers have tagged onto, and that's they want me to play Captain Britain. So hopefully one day we can do that. I can't believe I've got that into the end of this show as well. It's something that I always go on about.
Play Captain Britain.
Yeah, play Captain Britain. That's a thing on our live shows that seems to come up a lot for some reason. I think it's just the accent. They think, oh, he's got an English accent. He should play Captain Britain.
Well, when you do, please send me the link.
I will do. I will do. Probably in an amateur film, a fan film, maybe. Maybe James might do that for us.
Nice.
Cheers. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for agreeing to do this. It was great talking to you.
No worries. Pleasure. Take care.